Celestia's fork clattered against her plate as Paxton's hand clamped around her wrist under the table. To anyone watching the elegant anniversary dinner at Aurelio's, San Francisco's most exclusive Italian restaurant, they looked like the perfect couple. Him in his tailored Tom Ford suit, her in the Valentino dress he had chosen that morning. No one could see his fingernails digging crescents into her skin. "Smile," he murmured, his voice sweet for the benefit of his business partners across the table. "You're being rude, darling." Celestia's crime was that she had contradicted his story about their recent vacation to Santorini. He had claimed they had stayed at a five-star resort. The truth was he had left her alone in their rental villa for 3 days while he conducted business she was not allowed to ask about. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the automatic response after 2 years of marriage. "I misspoke." "You always misspeak." His grip tightened. "It's embarrassing." Across the table, Paxton's colleagues, venture capitalists with too much money and too little conscience, laughed at some joke she had missed. Their wives picked at overpriced pasta and compared vacation homes. No one noticed Celestia's distress. No one ever did, except for the man at the adjacent table. He sat alone, which was unusual for Aurelio's, where solo diners were quietly discouraged. Late 30s, perhaps, with sharp cheekbones and black hair styled with casual precision. His charcoal suit was impeccably cut, and when he lifted his wine glass, Celestia caught a glimpse of ink on his wrist, the edge of what looked like an intricate tattoo. He was watching them, watching her. When his dark eyes met hers, something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, though they had never met. He saw. Somehow, he saw what everyone else missed. "The Sanderson merger is happening," Paxton announced loudly, finally releasing Celestia's wrist to gesture expansively. "We're talking 40 million in the first quarter alone." 42 million, Celestia said quietly, unable to help herself. She had reviewed the documents just yesterday while Paxton was at the gym. The projections showed 42. The table went silent. Paxton's smile never wavered, but his eyes promised retribution. "My wife thinks she understands finance." "How adorable." Actually, one of the venture capitalists checked his phone. "She's right. 42 million. Well," Paxton's laugh was hollow. "Even a broken clock is right twice a day." The conversation moved on, but Celestia felt the stranger's eyes still on her. When she dared glance his way again, he raised his wine glass in a minute gesture, a private acknowledgement that she was seen, that she was more than Paxton's decorative mistake. For the first time in months, Celestia did not feel completely alone. Then Paxton's hand found her thigh under the table, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "We're leaving," he announced abruptly, standing and pulling Celestia up with him. "Early morning meeting." "But we have not had dessert," someone protested. "My wife is not feeling well." Paxton's hand moved to the back of Celestia's neck, possessive and threatening. "Are you, darling?" The valet brought Paxton's Tesla around, and Celestia slid into the passenger seat with practiced silence. She knew what was coming. The 20-minute drive home would be a litany of her failures, speaking out of turn, embarrassing him, thinking she was smart enough to contribute to business discussions. But Paxton surprised her. He said nothing. He just drove with white-knuckled hands gripping the steering wheel, his jaw working with suppressed rage. The silence was worse than the shouting. They lived in Pacific Heights, in a pristine Victorian that Architectural Digest had featured last year. "Tech entrepreneur's dream home," the article had called it. No one mentioned that Celestia was not allowed to change the thermostat without permission, or that Paxton had installed cameras in every room except the bathrooms. Paxton parked in the garage and rounded the car before Celestia could open her door. He yanked it open, his face finally showing the fury he had been containing. "Get inside." Celestia's heart hammered as she walked through the mudroom into the kitchen. She had been here before. This terrible anticipation, knowing pain was coming but not when or how severe. 2 years, Paxton said, following her inside and slamming the door. 2 years I have tried to make you into someone respectable. Someone who does not humiliate me in front of my colleagues. I was just correcting the number. The slap came fast, snapping her head to the side. Her cheek burned, and she tasted copper where her teeth had cut her inner lip. "You were showing off," Paxton hissed. "Making me look stupid. You think because your father was some hotshot economist that you understand business? You're a trophy wife, Celestia. That is all you are. All you will ever be." Celestia touched her cheek gently. In the beginning, Paxton had been different. Charming, attentive, supportive of her career in financial analysis. Then came the engagement, and slowly, systematically, he dismantled her life. He made her quit her job because his wife did not need to work. He isolated her from friends who did not understand their dynamic. He convinced her family that she was just being dramatic when she tried to hint at problems. He had been so careful at first. Never bruises where people could see. Never injuries that required hospitals. Just enough pain to keep her compliant, terrified, trapped. "I'm sorry," Celestia whispered, "because apologies sometimes shorten the violence." "You're always sorry." Paxton grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. "But you never learn." The doorbell rang. Paxton's grip loosened slightly, confusion flickering across his features. "Who is that?" "It is 11 at night." The doorbell rang again, more insistent. "Stay here," Paxton ordered, releasing her and stalking toward the front door. Celestia heard the door open, heard Paxton's aggressive tone. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" Then silence. Curiosity overrode fear. Celestia moved to where she could see the entryway. The man from the restaurant stood on their doorstep. Up close, he was even more striking and more dangerous looking. The tattoo she had glimpsed earlier extended up his forearm in intricate patterns that suggested traditional Korean art. "Can I help you?" Paxton's voice had lost some of its aggression, replaced by uncertainty. "I am looking for Celestia," the stranger said. His accent was faint but noticeable. Korean, definitely. His dark eyes found her over Paxton's shoulder. "You left this at the restaurant." He held up a clutch purse, expensive, designer, and absolutely not hers. "That is not my wife's," Paxton said suspiciously. "No?" The stranger's expression remained neutral. "My mistake, though I could swear I saw the lady drop it." His gaze returned to Celestia, and she understood. This was a rescue attempt, an excuse to check on her to make sure she had made it home safely. "We do not need your help," Paxton started. "Actually," Celestia heard herself say, stepping forward, "I think that might be mine. I have been looking for it." Paxton turned to stare at her, and she saw the warning in his eyes. But something in the stranger's presence made her brave, or reckless. She walked to the door and took the purse from the stranger's hand. "Thank you so much for returning it." Up close, she could see the concern in his eyes, the way they catalogued the redness on her cheek, the tremor in her hands. "My pleasure," he said quietly. Then, to Paxton, "You have a beautiful home, and a remarkable wife." "I know who you are," Paxton said suddenly, his voice tight. "Kong Lucian. You're Korean Mafia." Lucian's slight smile confirmed it. "I prefer international businessman, but semantics. Get off my property." Paxton moved to close the door, but Lucian's hand shot out, stopping it with casual strength. In a moment, Lucian's eyes found Celestia again. "I wanted to make sure you got home safely. Restaurant parking lots can be dangerous." The meaning was clear. "I know what you drove home to. I know what is happening in this house." "She is fine," Paxton snapped. "We are fine. This is a private residence. With cameras in every room," Lucian observed, gesturing to the visible security system. "Impressive setup, though I notice none in the bathrooms. Privacy concerns? Or is there another reason?" Paxton's face flushed. "How dare you? I am just making conversation." Lucian's tone remained pleasant, but steel threaded through it, noting interesting architectural choices, like the camera's position to monitor the entire first floor. The kind of surveillance that makes a home feel less like a sanctuary and more like a prison. "I think you should leave," Paxton said, his hand moving to his phone. "Before I call the police." "By all means." Lucian did not move. I am sure they would be interested in why your wife has a fresh handprint on her face, or why she is trembling, or why she has bruises forming in the distinct pattern of fingers. Celestia's breath caught. No one had ever called it out so directly. No one had ever dared to name what was happening. You do not know what you are talking about, Paxton snarled. Celestia, tell him. Tell him you are fine. The expected response sat on her tongue. I am fine. I fell. I am clumsy. All the lies she had perfected. But Lucian was watching her with those dark, knowing eyes. Not judging. Not pitying. Just seeing her. Really seeing her. She does not look fine, Lucian said before Celestia could speak. She looks terrified. Get out. Paxton's rage was building to dangerous levels. Lucian reached into his jacket. Paxton flinched, perhaps expecting a weapon. Instead, Lucian produced a business card and held it out to Celestia. If you ever need help, Lucian said quietly, call that number, day or night. No questions asked. She will not be needing. Lucian's voice cut through like a blade, sharp and absolute. 3 words that made Paxton go pale. Touch her again. The unspoken threat hung in the air. Touch her again and see what happens. Touch her again and discover what the Korean Mafia does to men who hurt women. Paxton stepped back involuntarily. Celestia's hand closed around the business card, the small rectangle of paper feeling like a lifeline, like hope. Lucian held Paxton's gaze for another long moment, then turned and walked back to a black Range Rover parked across the street. He did not look back, but somehow Celestia knew he was still watching, still making sure. Paxton slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. Then he turned to Celestia, and she saw murder in his eyes. You, he said quietly, dangerously, just made the biggest mistake of your life. Celestia braced herself, but Paxton surprised her again. He did not hit her. Instead, he grabbed his keys from the entry table and stormed out, the Tesla's tires squealing as he peeled out of the driveway, leaving her alone in the house that suddenly felt more like a mausoleum than a home. Celestia sank onto the marble floor, her legs finally giving out. In her hand, Lucian's business card felt impossibly heavy. She turned it over. Simple black cardstock with a phone number and a single word in silver embossing. Sanctuary. She should throw it away. Paxton would find it eventually. He always found everything. The cameras, his periodic checks of her phone and computer, the way he went through her belongings when he thought she was not paying attention. But she slipped the card into her bra instead, the only place she could think of that the cameras could not see. Celestia spent the next 3 hours cleaning the already spotless kitchen, waiting for Paxton to return. He came back at 2 in the morning, reeking of whiskey and someone else's perfume. He walked past her without a word and locked himself in his study. The next morning, Celestia woke to find Paxton already dressed for work, his mood unervingly pleasant. I have been thinking, he said, adjusting his tie in their bedroom mirror. You are right. You should get out more. Socialize. Maybe take a class or something. Celestia's instincts screamed danger. Paxton never encouraged her independence. Really? She managed. Really? In fact, I have already enrolled you. He smiled and it did not reach his eyes. Cooking classes at the Pacific Culinary Institute. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening. First session is tonight. That is thoughtful of you, isn't it? Paxton kissed her forehead, a gesture that once meant affection but now felt like ownership. The instructor is supposed to be excellent. Margarety Volkov came highly recommended. After he left, Celestia looked up the institute. The classes were real, expensive, and taught by a stern-looking woman with an impressive resume. But something felt wrong. Paxton had never done anything that was not calculated. She could not figure out his angle until she arrived that evening and saw the other students. All women, all wealthy, all chattering about their husbands and their perfect lives. Women who would see Celestia as competition, not allies. Women who would report back to their husbands, who played golf with Paxton, who moved in the same social circles. He had sent her to a room full of witnesses. People who would testify that Celestia seemed fine, seemed happy, seemed like a woman living her best life. It was strategic isolation disguised as social engagement. During a break, Celestia locked herself in a bathroom stall and pulled out Lucien's card. Her hands shook as she typed the number into her phone. Not calling, just saving it, just in case. A text came through immediately, though she had not sent anything. You are at the Culinary Institute. I know. Stay in public places. Do not go home alone if you can avoid it. Celestia stared at the message. How did he know where she was? Was he following her? The thought should have frightened her. Instead, for the first time in 2 years, she felt protected. She typed back. How? The response came quickly. Your husband is not the only one with cameras. And unlike him, I use mine to protect people, not control them. Over the next 2 weeks, a strange routine developed. Celestia attended her cooking classes, played the role of contented wife, and endured Paxton's increasingly erratic moods. He had become paranoid since Lucien's visit, checking the security footage obsessively, questioning where she had been, monitoring her phone usage. But he had not hit her again. It was as if Lucien's warning had created an invisible shield. The texts from Lucien came sporadically, never intrusive, just reassuring. A simple "I am here" when Paxton's Tesla pulled into the driveway late. A "you are not alone" after particularly tense dinners visible through their floor-to-ceiling windows. It should have felt like surveillance. Instead, it felt like someone finally cared whether she survived. On the 15th day, everything changed. Celestia was leaving her cooking class when a hand touched her elbow. She turned to find Lucien standing there, dressed casually in dark jeans and a leather jacket that somehow made him look more dangerous than his suits did. "Walk with me," he said quietly. "Please." They ended up at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Lucien waited until they were seated in a corner booth before speaking. "I need to tell you something about your husband." His expression was grim. "Things you need to know if you are going to protect yourself." "What things?" "Paxton is not just abusive, Celestia. He is dangerous in ways you do not understand." Lucien pulled out a tablet, opening a file. "I had my people dig into his history. His first wife, Ondine Beaumont. Do you know what happened to her?" Celestia's stomach dropped. "He said she died in a car accident." She died in a car accident after filing a police report about domestic abuse, after telling friends she was planning to leave him, after transferring money out of their joint accounts. Lucien's jaw tightened. The brake lines were cut, Celestia. The investigation was closed because Paxton's family has 2 judges and a police commissioner in their pocket. The coffee shop suddenly felt too hot, too small. "You are saying he killed her." "I am saying the pattern is clear. Ondine tried to leave. She died. You showed defiance in front of witnesses at that restaurant, and now he is setting a stage. Cooking classes with women who will testify you seem stable. Security footage that shows a normal marriage. Social media posts he has been making from your accounts about how happy you are." "He has been posting from my accounts? Check your Instagram." Celestia pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Her feed was full of posts she had never made. Photos of their home, captions about gratitude and love, hashtags about relationship goals, all time-stamped over the past 2 weeks. "He is building a narrative," Lucien said quietly. "So when something happens to you, everyone will say you seemed fine, just like they said about Ondine." Celestia could not breathe. The coffee shop walls seemed to close in as the truth crystallized. Paxton was not just an abusive husband. He was a murderer planning his next victim. "I need to leave," she whispered. "Right now. Tonight. If you run without preparation, he will find you." Lucien leaned forward. "Men like Paxton always do. They have resources, connections, private investigators. You need a strategy, not just an escape." "Then what do I do?" "You let me help you properly. New identity. Secure location, financial independence, everything you need to disappear completely." His dark eyes held hers. "But Celestia, there is something else you need to know. Something that makes this complicated." "What?" Your husband has been working with the Volkov family. Russian organized crime. They are using his tech company to launder money. Millions of dollars moving through his software platforms. Lucian's expression was grave. If you leave, if you file for divorce, you become a liability to both Paxton and the Volkovs. Someone who might know too much. The cooking instructor. Margareti Volkov. It was not coincidence. Paxton had sent her there to be watched, evaluated, maybe even eliminated if she became a problem. I do not know anything about his business, Celestia said desperately. But they do not know that. And paranoid criminals do not take chances. Lucian's hand covered hers across the table. This is bigger than an abusive marriage now. This is organized crime, money laundering, and at least one murder. You are caught in the middle. Celestia pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. I cannot do this. I cannot. This is insane. I should just go to the police. The police who closed Ondine's case? The ones on Paxton's family payroll. Lucian stood too. Celestia, listen to me. No, she was backing toward the door. I do not know you. I do not know why you are helping me or what you really want. Maybe you are just as dangerous as Paxton. Maybe this is all some kind of... Her phone buzzed. A text from Paxton. Where are you? Your location shows you left the institute 40 minutes ago. He is tracking your phone, Lucian said quietly. Probably has been for months. Celestia stared at the screen, then at Lucian, then back at her phone. Every choice felt like a trap. Stay with Paxton and die like Ondine. Trust Lucian and risk jumping from one danger to another. Run alone and get hunted down. No good options. Only degrees of terrible. Her phone rang. Paxton calling. Do not answer it, Lucian warned. But Celestia's finger was already moving toward the accept button, muscle memory from 2 years of immediate obedience. She caught herself at the last second. The ringing stopped. Then a text. I am coming to get you. Stay where you are. He is not asking, Celestia whispered. He is telling me, like always. Through the coffee shop window, she saw a familiar Tesla turn onto the street. Back door, Lucian said urgently, taking her arm. Now. For the first time in 2 years, Celestia ran. Lucian's Range Rover was parked in the alley behind the coffee shop. He opened the passenger door, and Celestia hesitated for just a moment. This was the point of no return. Getting in this car meant choosing Lucian's protection over Paxton's control. It meant admitting her marriage was over. Had been over since Ondine's brake lines were cut. She got in. Lucian drove with controlled urgency, checking mirrors constantly. Your phone. Give it to me. Celestia handed it over. He powered it down, removed the SIM card, and dropped it out the window. He can't track what's not transmitting. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can't reach you. Lucian glanced at her. But I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that? Trust. Such a small word for such an impossible ask. Celestia had trusted Paxton when he'd proposed. Trusted him when he'd said quitting her job was best. Trusted him until trust became a weapon he wielded against her. I don't know, she admitted. Fair enough. Lucian's voice softened. Then don't trust me. Trust yourself. Your instincts brought you to that restaurant, made you catch my eye, told you to take my card. Those same instincts are telling you right now whether I'm safe or not. Listen to them. Celestia closed her eyes and listened. To the part of herself she'd silenced for 2 years. The part Paxton had systematically tried to destroy. The part that had graduated top of her class at Stanford, that had built financial models for Fortune 500 companies, that had once been confident and capable and strong. That part of her said, trust him. Okay, she whispered. I trust you. They arrived at a converted warehouse in the Mission District, industrial chic exterior hiding what turned out to be a surprisingly warm space inside. A woman met them at the door, petite, fierce-looking, with silver streaking her black hair. This is Saren, Lucian introduced. She's head of security for my organization. She's also a survivor. Saren's handshake was firm. Let's get you cleaned up and fed. Then we'll talk about next steps. Over soup and tea, Celestia learned that Saren had escaped her own abusive marriage 8 years ago. That Lucian's organization, which yes, was technically Korean Mafia, ran a network of safe houses for women fleeing domestic violence. We have resources the police don't, Saren explained. Money, connections, the willingness to bend rules that protect abusers. Lucian's sister? She glanced at him, and he nodded permission to continue. She didn't make it out. He spent the last 5 years making sure other women do. But it's not just altruism, Lucian said quietly. I won't lie to you, Celestia. Helping you helps me. Paxton's connection to the Volkovs, that's information I can use. Evidence we've been trying to gather for months. You want me to testify against them. I want you to have the choice. Lucian met her eyes. You can disappear completely, new name, new city, new life. Or you can stand and fight. Expose Paxton, expose the Volkovs, maybe prevent what happened to Ondine from happening to someone else. Celestia thought about Ondine. About the other woman she'd been before Paxton. About all the women still trapped in beautiful houses with security cameras and controlling husbands. I'll fight, she said. Tell me what I need to do. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Celestia would wear a wire to her next cooking class. Margareti Volkov had been getting careless, dropping hints about special clients and offshore arrangements that Saren believed she could be provoked into elaborating on. She thinks you're just another trophy wife, Saren explained while fitting the nearly invisible recording device. Play into that. Act curious but naive. Let her feel superior. The wire wasn't the only precaution. Lucian had 3 of his people stationed around the Culinary Institute. A federal prosecutor, one outside the Volkov family's reach, was standing by to receive the recording. And Ondine's accident investigation was being quietly reopened by an honest detective Lucian had cultivated. If this goes wrong, Celestia started. It won't, Lucian said with a certainty she wanted desperately to believe. But if it does, you run. Saren will be waiting in the parking lot. She'll get you out. The cooking class started normally. Margareti demonstrated proper knife technique while the other students chatted about their privileged problems. But during the break, when most of the women left for coffee, Margareti approached Celestia. Your husband called me, she said in her heavy Russian accent. He's concerned about you, says you've been acting strangely. Celestia's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. I've just been stressed. Paxton works so much, and I get lonely in that big house. Lonely? Margareti's smile was cold. Yes, I imagine. Especially now that you know about Ondine. The name hung between them like a grenade. I don't know what you mean, Celestia said carefully. Don't insult my intelligence. Margareti wiped down her cutting board with methodical precision. You know she died. You know your husband was involved. And now you're talking to the Korean Mafia, thinking they'll protect you. Celestia's blood turned to ice. They knew about Lucian. My employers don't like complications, Margareti continued. Ondine was a complication. She had to be removed. And now you're becoming a complication too. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. Your husband has been very profitable for our organization. We won't let you jeopardize that relationship. Margareti's hand moved to the knife block. Cooking accidents happen all the time. So tragic. So unavoidable. The other students were returning. Margareti selected a cleaver, testing its weight. Tonight's lesson is butchering, she said pleasantly, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Celestia, come help me demonstrate. Celestia's hands trembled as she moved toward the front. She could see Saren through the window, phone pressed to her ear, clearly calling for backup. But backup wouldn't arrive in time if Margareti decided a cooking accident needed to happen right now. You're scared, Margareti observed, her voice low again. Good. Fear is smart. Fear keeps you alive, if you make the right choice. What choice? Go home. Tell your husband you'll be perfect from now on. Never speak of Ondine or the Volkovs again. Live quietly. Die old. Margareti's smile was sharp. Or keep fighting and die young. Like Ondine. The cleaver gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The other students watched expectantly, unaware they were witnessing a woman being given an ultimatum. Celestia looked at that knife, thought about Ondine's cut break lines, remembered Paxton's hands around her throat. She'd spent 2 years being afraid. "No," she said clearly. "I won't go home. I won't be quiet. And I'm done being scared of men like my husband and women like you." Margarethi's expression shifted to fury, but before she could move, the doors burst open. Federal agents flooded the room. Not Lucien's people, but actual FBI, led by a woman whose badge read, Special Agent Thorne. "Margarethi Volkov, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and racketeering." Agent Thorne's smile was satisfied. "And thank you for the confession." Every word was recorded. The wire. Celestia had forgotten about the wire. Margarethi's face contorted with rage as agents cuffed her. "You stupid girl. You think this ends with me? The organization will. The organization is being dismantled as we speak," Thorne interrupted. 15 arrests across 3 states, including Paxton Whitmore. Celestia's knees buckled. Saren appeared at her side, steadying her. "Paxton," Celestia whispered. "They arrested him an hour ago," Saren said gently. "Financial crimes, conspiracy in Ondine's death, connections to the Volkovs. Lucien's been working with federal prosecutors for months. You weren't the only evidence, just the final piece." The next weeks were a blur of testimony, depositions, and media storms. Paxton's perfect facade crumbled under scrutiny. His first wife's suspicious death reopened. His financial crimes exposed. His abuse documented. The Volkov network collapsed. 6 months later, Celestia stood in a different kitchen, her own, in a modest apartment she'd chosen herself. She was rebuilding her consulting business, reconnecting with the friends Paxton had isolated her from, rediscovering who she was outside of fear. Lucien visited sometimes, always respectful, always careful not to assume anything. But somewhere between depositions and coffee shop meetings, gratitude had shifted into something else. "Paxton pled guilty," he told her one evening. 20 years minimum. The Volkovs are facing life sentences. "Good." Celestia poured wine, her hands steady now. "And Ondine's family? They've filed a civil suit. They'll get justice too." Lucien accepted the glass. "How are you doing?" "Really? I'm angry," Celestia admitted. "At Paxton, at myself for staying so long, at a system that protects men like him. But I'm also free. And I'm fighting. Consulting for a nonprofit that helps domestic violence survivors navigate financial abuse. Turning your pain into purpose. Someone taught me that was possible." She met his eyes. Someone who said 3 words that changed everything. "Touch her again," Lucien remembered. "No," Celestia smiled. The 3 words were, "You're not alone. That's what you told me, through every text, every moment. That I wasn't alone." He moved closer. "You're not. You never will be again. Not if you don't want to be." She didn't want to be. This story explored themes of domestic violence, institutional corruption, and finding courage through support. What does true protection look like to you? Someone who fights for you, or someone who helps you fight for yourself? Share your thoughts, and if this resonated, subscribe for more stories of survival and strength.